Welcome to Season 5 of the Retail Tea Break podcast. My name is Melissa Moore, the Retail Advisor, and each week I'll be joined by industry experts, retailers and brands to dispel the myths, share their knowledge and give you an insight into the retail industry. You can listen back to previous episodes on your favourite podcast platform or on YouTube, and while you're there, please subscribe to the podcast so that you get to listen to it first every week. In the meantime, grab that cup of tea, sit back and listen in to Season 5 of the Retail Tea Break podcast. Today's episode of the Retail Tea Break podcast is sponsored by TruRating, unlocking the voice of every customer. And I'm joined by a former lawyer who became fascinated with how to measure, understand and predict human behaviour. She'd noticed the rise of online review sites and the impact they were having on businesses. And then, having worked for Which, the largest consumer association in Europe, and working with the EU and UK governments, she became a champion for consumer rights in the then evolving online data and privacy space. All of this led to the creation of a multi-award-winning global, rapidly scaling tech startup. Georgina Nelson, CEO and co-founder of TruRating, welcome to the Retail Tea Break podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Melissa. It's an absolute pleasure.
Oh, I'm thrilled we're getting to have this conversation. There's loads of exciting data points I know you've pulled, and I'm fascinated to learn a little bit more about the business. So, without further ado, in the time that it takes to boil a kettle, which I'm told is about 2 minutes, tell us a little bit more about you and the business.
Yeah, you summarised it very well. I guess a part which probably was quite instrumental before I became a lawyer was doing psychology at university and becoming pretty obsessed with how you measure consumers and can accurately predict like future trends, etc. And then you're right, I became a lawyer for my sins, but advocating on behalf of consumers hopefully won me a few brownie points. But essentially during that whole big data consumer advocacy space, I was working opposite the likes of Amazon, Google, Facebook, etc. And I really began to understand the power of big data and consumer data to, building the world's biggest businesses. And at the same time, my dad was in bricks and mortar retail. So he was 30 years as the CEO of the Booksellers Association in the UK. And yeah, at the time when I first began having the seeds around TruRating, he was getting pretty beaten up by Bezos. So Amazon came on the scene and 50% of the bookshops in the UK went under. And so Dad was all around how you could, beat Bezos with an incredible in-store experience, knowledgeable staff, welcoming environments, etc. And he had all these plans, but no consumer data. So he didn't really know whether these things were going to work, whether the store teams would be carrying them out. And so, that was me on a mission, basically. I began asking him what kind of consumer data do some of these bookshops have? And, most of it was just sales figures, which is a complete stab in the dark because so much can influence those. And then the rest some of them were seat-based surveys where, only the angry animated ever bother filling those out. And so I thought if you could get people feeding back in the moment as they pay for something, make it super simple, super quick, we'd all answer one question. And if you could rotate it, then you'd get that wealth of data. And so that was the idea. You leverage that payment terminal or that moment when someone pays for something. And so what sounded a simple idea has actually been quite complicated as we've worked with the world's biggest payments companies to build our technology and deploy it onto those payment terminals. But the beauty of it is, in that simplicity, we hear from 80% on average of customers in the store. And we also, all anonymously and obviously protecting consumer rights, given my heritage, but we also can see how much people spent. We can see patterns of returning behavior, what's in the basket, and all that really builds to give a really rich picture back to the retailer of what they need to do to improve on to provide a better customer experience. So that was the
wow, just like that.
Just
Uh,
like that. Oh, taken a few years.
How amazing. I love what I absolutely love about this. It came from retail basics, the fundamentals of supporting your dad and people like him. And we know there are so many retailers, physical retailers around the world that really just want to fight back, as you said, with really strong customer service in store, really knowledgeable staff. And I love that that led to this incredible, incredible tool. But the other thing there, and we have to just touch on it again, 80% of consumers you're captured. Like, that is mind blowing that so many people with a click of a button, and I must say, I've been one myself recently, which is so exciting. Even here in the west of Ireland, click of the button, my feedback is instant. And then, as you say, you're collating all of this, and it can only go to serve the retailer with really rich, true data points.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you think about the status quo before TruRating, as I said, these receipt-based surveys, like
Mm.
it ends up being, a handful of responses at a store level, if that, a week, and it's like a tiny percent of customers. And you just don't know whether to take action on that, or someone's complaining about like slipping on some bleach or some rude member of staff. And it's, as managers, as operators, you're getting in all this feedback going, I don't, is that just someone really noisy with a
Mm.
grudge, or is there data which I need to action? And the power of hearing from 80% of customers means that you can cut all that massive data to granular, hour by hour, store by store. This is what we're seeing. And that means ultimately that's what leads to being able to take action. You can trust the data and you can see, we've got a problem with the store being clean across these times of day. We need to invest in more staff training, ensuring, people are knowledgeable about what they're selling at these stores. And it's that being able to take action, being able to provide better customers experience, which it's got to all be about, really.
Absolutely. And I think you're really valuing the customer, because, of course, any action you take is going to better serve the customer. It's going to lead to a better experience. So it feels incredibly circular as well, which I absolutely love. So across so many different categories, then we know food, pharma, furniture, you've now gathered, and again, my mind is blown by this figure. You've now gathered 500 million ratings of usable data. And actually, I must just say, if you go on the website, I've now become a little obsessed with seeing this figure build and build and build in real time, which is just bonkers, because it's absolutely incredible that that's what you've been able to do with your retailers. So from all of that data then that's being collated, are there any key kind of themes that stand out then to you?
Yeah, I think, as you touched on, we're in such diverse verticals from, Canada Post with post offices all throughout Canada to auto centers to some of the top fashion brands, grocery, footwear, yeah, discount, etc. So across all those diverse verticals, and it was really surprising actually the commonalities of what essentially makes good retail appeared across the board, really. And I think the first, and we can dive into this deeper, was really the people are your power. Really, it is your experience of a brand is only as good as your last experience, essentially. And that experience is predominantly shaped by the people who are representing it on the store floor when you go in. And so really ensuring that you're investing in those frontline operators and they are living and breathing your brand is key. And we can dive into some of those aspects in a bit more detail. But I'd say what was also interesting across all those sectors was, I think we're at the age of we're at the time and age of experience.
Mm.
And those retailers which are see their store simply as warehousing and price fulfillment, etc., they're the ones which I think are gonna struggle. It's people are not looking to buy off Amazon because they want that experience and they want to be able to touch and feel the products, to be able to talk to people about them. And I think back to those signs which lovely to look at, lovely to hold. You play with this product, consider it sold, or you break this product, or
Yeah.
but But what we're seeing is those retailers which encourage you to play. So that could be anything from, would you like me to take these into the fitting room for you? Would you like another size? Or, did you sample any of our, products in store? All the explosion from the likes of Sephora and Ulta, these types of makeup brands, which are all about you going in and experiencing the products, to getting behind a car for, and really encouraging test drives. So really it's that experience which is so key to conversion. So that creativity about how you can really get to live and breathe the brand and its products in a very, in a truly tactile way, I think has been key.
I love that. And I think especially coming out of, COVID and lockdowns and
Yeah.
not being allowed to touch stuff, I think the fact that your data is showing this more than ever now, as you say, and I'm even doing it with my hands right here, is you want to touch, whether you want to touch and feel, whether it's feeling what that
Yeah.
lipstick is like on, what it's feeling like, that steering wheel in your hand that you're about to invest in. So much of what we do is to entice shoppers into store, but then allow them play. You have to have them play if you want them to kind of love your brand as much as you do.
Yeah, exactly. Like we've seen on average, if you experience the product, you spend 24% more. And so that
Wow,
is an incredible investment.
that's unbelievable. Any other kind of key insights then from this 500 million? And I'm going to keep saying it because it still shocks me. 500 million pieces of data, like it's phenomenal.
Yeah. I think what, as I said to that, people is power. What's interesting is looking at what aspects of that emotional connection which people are really looking for. And I think it goes again to the sort of fundamentals of human psychology, the
Mm,
power of a smile and the power of a hello. And I saw something recently on LinkedIn how a grocer in New Zealand now has an aisle, a checkout aisle, which is called Have a Chat aisle. And it's like where especially elderly people, some of the
yeah.
they live in an area where there's a lot of elderly who miss that, emotional connection and coming to the shop for a chat. But yeah, it's not just, we all like, we all like that. And I think, again, interestingly, that the power of when were you greeted with a hello today, we see people spend 20% more. And I think it's not just, that hello is that sign to say, we've formed a connection. You can approach me now
Mm.
and, ask me about whether you've got your size, that you've seen a product. You've built that connection, that it often means that people will, come to you for questions around the product, which means that then there's a much higher chance of conversion. So the power of a smile, a hello, and I also think we've really just seen how, again, that passion for a product has been really key, and you can't really fake that. And so what was interesting, like a good example, was with a high-end sneaker trainer company. I've been in the US too long. Sneaker, a high-end trainer company which we were working with in London. We saw a dip in their customer experience scores and service scores go down, and that was impacting their revenue and bottom line. We're like, what could this be about? And basically, they had changed their recruitment strategy to look for people who just had retail experience rather than people who had experience of, like, loving trainers and being obsessed with trainers. And that was really impacting the amount of people they could convert. And so again, I just think it's that, that investment, that hiring practice and then investment to ensure people really understand your product, or ambassadors of it, and can convert those your
That's
customers to be the
that's
same.
incredible. And like, you've just reacted there because I'm sat here gobsmacked, but yet not surprised. Look, an awful lot of what I do, whether it's training retailers or educating them through various levels of education, is to talk about this importance of, we're all going through this digital transformation. That's a given. But the emotional
Mm,
connection, which I'm sure goes back to your father's time and people he was seeing and working with, this kind of face-to-face human connection, the emotional connection, is far superior and far more important than anything else we could be doing right now. So I love the fact that retailers
Mm,
want you to gather that data, but also by the sounds of it, they're reacting to it. That's fascinating about the recruitment aspect, because again, it brings it on one further level. This is all about people. As you said a few minutes
yeah.
ago, retail really is about people. I suppose, does any of that surprise you, considering we're all very tech savvy now? Retail has to be, it's had to move on. But does the
Mm.
very fact that it comes down to these fundamentals of people, does it surprise you at all?
Well, I think, I was just at the Store Operations Council here in the US, where you have people in store operations from across the US retailers. And it was obviously there was a huge amount of excitement around, workforce management tools out there now, communication tools to really help those on the front line and all these amazing progressions in tech. And I think it's all to remove the busy work of what is essentially, very much on the shoulders of a lot of the store associates now. You speak to them and they're like, I've got to do this. I've got to pick up for our BOPIS. I've got to unpack, stock the shelves, price. They'll run through all their tasks. And from our perspective, what we've seen is if you can get those store associates, if you can deploy technology to help them with all that busy work, that back office stuff, which is taking their time to do those timetables, to et
Mm.
cetera, and get them out focusing, being the face and to the customers. And that's where you're going to see the biggest yield and reward. Like we've asked so many questions of consumers, like what tech do they value in store? And it's all interesting, but most of it is things like apps to help them navigate the store came interestingly out on top. But things like self-checkout, if they can't find assistance quickly with self-checkout, that really leads to a poor customer experience, like whether you're buying booze or you can't find the lookup product or whatever. And so ensuring that if you are going to invest in tools like self-checkout, that you're not removing those people from on the shop floor, that they're still there to be present, to offer assistance, has been absolutely key as well. So I think it's always just never forgetting in any technology decisions and investment decisions which you make on the shop floor, it's ensuring that you're not forgetting that human element in training, which is key to always pair them up.
Yeah, it sounds so relevant now, as you say, because we have become task heavy. There's no getting around that. There's a shortage of people within retail,
Mm,
worldwide at the moment. But if we use that tech to utilize the boring stuff, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it, because a lot
yeah,
of
the
that
busy work.
tasking is,
Yeah,
it is really boring. It's needed, and we have to do it to run our physical stores, especially. But I agree that if we actually have people at every point of that customer journey, that we continue to put the customer at the heart, like many retailers and brands say they do, that then being able to pick up on the data points that you have, as you say, have you been served by someone today? Have you actually met with a physical person?
yeah,
That's going to
availability is
support
key.
that. And that's another really interesting thing, because we see that over the years that more and more retailers have tried to pull people back from the shop floor, whether it's been through scheduling, whether it's been through, financial reasons, but they have to be available, as you say.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting just looking at, because we do heat maps, we can see across the time of the day when things are, when there've been sort of hotspots and issues, and obviously how that impacts revenue. And often just seeing, when there's a changeover in shift time between the morning and the late shifts, has really hurt a number of retailers because people can't find that assistance. Being able to just simply, ensure that there's a wider overlap, for example. Or we found that in one retailer, when they were getting their goods delivered at a certain time, so people left the shop floor to go and unpack them out the back. And just seeing, like, literally, you can't argue with it. This is hurting our bottom line. And knowing that you can simply do, how much extra would it cost us to put someone on the shop floor for this time? All right, cool. We know we'll make that back because we know customers will spend more. Yeah, is key to making those business decisions with confidence. And then you can, with our tool, you can simply just A/B test these theories in a few stores if you want, and then you can get the confidence of that investment and no to roll it out wider.
I'm going to ask the question at this stage because again, I know a lot of people listening will be thinking, oh, heat maps and data. Explain a little bit about how it actually works in a retail setting.
So yeah, it's really simple. You're just waiting to pay, and you're just waiting to tap your card or insert it or whatever, and just literally on the payment device comes a question. So it could be, were you greeted in store today? Or the next person behind you could get, did you find everything you were looking for? So the questions rotate, and you don't have to ask every customer either. If you've got peak rush hour times, you can ask one every few minutes or whatever, and the questions rotate. So one simple question, and then you go through to payment. And with every rating, we donate to children's charities across our markets, and retailers can also publish their scores on Google with a TruRating profile page, which really brings that visibility around, consumers are rating, but they can also, again, see how our retailer is doing. So that virtuous circle, as you said.
It's so quick and so easy from a customer perspective. And I suppose an awful lot of the way I look at this is it has to be easy for the customer. Otherwise, they're not going to bother. I think about the retailers where they have given you the receipt to then go online and give your view. How many people do that compared to just screwing it up in the bin? Whereas I suppose if you're waiting to pay and the pin pad is there in front of you, it is just a quick, God, is it even a couple of seconds, a button, and away you
Yeah,
go.
exactly. I think, as especially like looking at the way times are changing, we're also used to micro rating, whether it's, Uber or, the delivery of our takeout or whatever. And I think, especially when you look at Gen Z, for example, so many retailers absolutely struggle to try and get engagement from, from that group who want instant hits. They're not going to log on online later and fill in a lengthy questionnaire. It has to be in that moment, and really respective of people's time. So yeah, we seem to have hit the nail on the head, touch wood.
Quick and easy, certainly by the sound of it, quick and easy for the customer, but really quick and easy as well for the retailer to take action, which again has to be there for them to be strategic long term in that respect. And I suppose with that, by the sound of it, the data can be used across functions. So it isn't even just store managers, we'd say. It can be used at a strategic level. And one thing I found fascinating, and I do love this because you do often think, oh, too much communication in a store, too much signage. But your data is actually showing that the customer actually appreciates strong communication and that they do read our signage, which again I was fascinated by, because you know what, having worked in store and worked my way up all those years ago, you're almost led to believe that there's way too much signage in store nowadays.
It's true. I think it's quite interesting. We were speaking to one of the top management consultants who are advising retailers on in-store signage, and they're saying that they got their young associates to stand in car parks and say, did you notice this? Did you notice the sign there? But obviously with us, we can get that real time in the moment. And I think I'm sure, as you all have seen, like how hot retail media is getting now in terms of retailers looking at building other revenue streams, and you really using the store as that media hub for CPG, FCMGs to be able to communicate to consumers. And so we asked 135,000 consumers just across August and September around their views on retail media, like what was really influencing them in store to make a purchase. Was it an advert they saw online? Was it a influencer, etc.? And hands down, the top thing was in-store signage. So yeah, 68% of people said in-store signage had influenced their decision to purchase that day. And then when asked what makes them try something new, again, it was looking at a display in store or in-store signage. So I think previously so much of retail media has been really focused online when it's so clear to track and to do that ROI with the delight of cookies, etc., and build that case. But with our technology, we've actually really brought visibility down to a store level and showing yeah, it may sound traditional, but when it works, and consumers, it's there in front of them. Opportunistic buying. My mum keeps telling me, darling, you need to change to online grocery shopping, because I keep telling her how much I go in for a pint of milk and come out $200 poorer because I've got so excited at trying new things. But yeah, it works.
Goodness me. And I mean, again, with your data and you being strategic, what an easy kind of win to divert a little bit of that cash that a lot of retailers spending, whether it's on influencers, social media marketing, YouTube marketing, whatever it might be, and actually go back to basics, which of course ties in then
Mm,
with your people data that says, get the basics right in store. Customers are going to love you.
yeah, still, over 90% plus of all retail revenue is still made on the coalface in store. And so, yeah, let's bring back some of that sexiness to the retail basics, as you say.
Long may that continue as well, because again, it's getting those simple things right, as you said, Georgina. It's getting the right people in the right place. I love the scheduling aspect. I think we all feel that there needs to be bodies on the floor, but I think very few retailers realize that crossover might be 2 or 3 minutes, but the amount of people that you miss, and of course, then with
Mm,
the wrong signage in store, and I'm very mindful now of that. Even thinking about being out at the weekend, what I've seen, what's been wrong, the lack of pricing that's out there. It's these really simple retail
yeah.
basics that are putting money in the till.
Yeah, yeah, and obviously with our tool, being able to see visibility down to a store of, all right, we've got an issue there. The kind of thing which you'd never be able to pick up unless the district manager happened to just that day make a visit or whatever. And so being able to get that data real time is just so valuable to be able to act on that customer promise.
And also then it doesn't lump everybody in again in an area or a region. It's very
Mm,
specific to a store, as you said, down to the moment as to what's worked or what hasn't, which can only be great learnings and a great investment for the brands that have come on board, because it's not just a generalization.
yeah, exactly. I think so much of customer experience has all been like at this brand level before,
Mm,
and it's like everyone in a boardroom will sit and think, oh yeah, that's great, that's our brand. But like ultimately, apart from advertising slogans and all of that kind of stuff, how is that actually, really impacting how people are acting down on the shop floor? And I think that's been the massive miss.
can only get better. I do. I love it. So but I do. Do you know what? And we've spoken before. I come from frontline retail. I've certainly worked with and led huge teams on the shop floor. Data like this over the years would have been invaluable, because you can really start to polish what's worked well, but also really pick out what's not working because you've got very specific data. So I'm sure there's an awful lot of
Mm.
store managers or regional managers out there that are loving this because it's a better use of their time as well.
And I also think it takes the emotion out of it. Having spoken to so many operators, and a good retailer like you, Melissa, in your gut what needs to be done and to happen. But it's like, suddenly there's no, you have the conversation with your team, guys. You can't argue it. This is what our customers are telling us, and this is what we need to improve, and this is how much better we can be. And not having that emotive discussion where people discount what they're going to hear about in receipt-based surveys. They don't trust that, or they think, they don't trust their manager. Suddenly the data
It is.
speaks
It's
speaks
transparency.
volumes.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's
Yeah,
transparent. And
exactly.
also the cheeky part of me is thinking, right, well, I can go to head office and ask for more money for X, Y, and Z because the data's telling me
Yeah.
that as well. So I tell you, it
Yes.
definitely works both ways.
Completely. Thank you for your huge advocacy. That's amazing.
Oh, absolutely. Well, have to as a frontline retailer because it works. It's back to basics. So, final question, and I'm almost scared to ask this because I see the explosion of the company and the brand globally over the last few years. What on earth is coming up next for TruRating?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's all growth. So we're all focused on bringing, some amazing retailers and brands on board. We've grown 100% year on year last year and the year before. So and next to be even more next year. So yeah, really exciting with that. But I think for me, it's really pushing on ensuring that we get the communication like from retailers back to their customers. Like, what have we changed based on your feedback? And so I really want to focus on getting that circle of communication back, so consumers can see at a local level the changes which are happening all the time and really feel empowered. So I'm excited to do that with some of our retailers first out the gate. So more there, and then obviously I am really excited about all the advancements in predictive analytics, AI, etc., and really just beginning to flush all of our data through that. So beginning to say, like, okay, we can see historically you've always had a problem on like Wednesday afternoons with stock cleanliness. Be on your game on Tuesday, because tomorrow week you might have the same issues. So I think the whole area around that and being able to really leverage some of those tools is pretty exciting, and our product team are whirling with that. So yeah, I think my team to have a popcorn brain. So as many ideas will be coming over the next.
I'm excited.
I have 6 months or so, but
genuinely excited then to see what's coming up, because with what the work you've done so far with the phenomenal brands that are on board, no wonder they're delighted with it, because it makes sense, as you said, it makes sense for the front run retailer, it makes sense for the brand themselves, but as you bring it back to every time, it makes sense for the customer out there as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, look,
thanks, Melissa.
Oh, you're very welcome. And if you've enjoyed today's podcast episode, please do like and share it. Remember, you can listen back to past Retail Tea Break episodes on your favorite podcast platform, or of course on YouTube. Do please connect with Georgina and myself on LinkedIn, and I'll obviously pop TruRating's website link into the show notes, and you'll be able to find the show notes and the transcript for today's episode on theretailadvisor.ie. Georgina, thank you so much for your time and your insights today.
Thank you so much for having me.